All right. So today we have Frederic. He is the CEO and founder of Manticore Games. Frederic is a graduate of the Stanford University Graduate School of Business. He authored 2 published Stanford GSE cases, and the EA in 2002 and Xbox launched in Korea. He led a 5-person group in an entrepreneurship project on online gaming technology using Stanford's multimedia streaming technologies to improve QoS of online games. 16 groups were selected amongst 40 applicants for this group. He founded Manticore Games in 2016. Manticore is an endless arcade of thousands of free games to play and worlds to explore designed by the global community of developers. This community allows users to play thousands of Unreal-powered games in every genre imaginable. In 2021, Manticore Games raised $100 million in series funding and was valued at $1.2 billion. Without further ado, let's welcome Frederic.
Hello. Can you folks hear me? Can you folks see me correctly? Is that okay?
I think we can see you.
Yeah, that's better. The sound in from the room is a little muffled at times, but you know, and you know, I've been in the US for 25 years, and I've decided to keep my French accent very thick. So there is really no problem if I have to repeat myself, or talk louder. But it's really awesome to connect with you folks. I think the request was made like maybe months and months ago, and I've been very busy. You've all been very busy, so it's great that we could connect today. Really, it's completely open. Like we can talk about really anything. I don't know too much about your class and everybody's backgrounds.
Wait, Frederic, sorry, the audio just got...
Oof. There's a huge echo. I cannot hear you anymore.
Sorry, we just had little technical difficulties. However, it's good now.
No worries. It's normal these days. So can you still hear me even though you're muted? Yep. Can you folks still hear me? You just muted yourself because of the echo.
We can hear you, Frederic. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. I should probably pin the room that I can see you all. Awesome. So yeah, as I mentioned, like we can keep the format very open, very simple. We can talk about anything. I don't know exactly the goal of this class curriculum. I presume it has to do with entrepreneurship a little bit, and with tech, entrepreneurship in tech. We can talk really about anything. And that was a great intro. It's interesting that you started with the stuff I did at Stanford because it was so long ago. I don't even know where you found all this information, but you must have done some research, so that's great. Yeah, so my name is Frederic Descamps. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Manticore Games. I've been in the US since '97. I'm originally from France. I'm originally from a very small town in the northern part of France. It's not the most touristic area. It is known for beer, World War I. It is known for, I guess, the 2 richest people in France, and one is the 2nd richest in the world, the CEO of LVMH. It is known for its alcoholism, its high rate of unemployment, high rate of crime, high rate of obesity, and that's where I come from. It's a small town called Armentières, 25,000 people, and I think it's the 4th poorest town in France, sometimes 5th, and when it's the 5th, then it means we've climbed one rank, and there are articles in the newspaper that my family sends me. It's a cause for celebration. And I never thought I would ever get out of that small town, let alone come to America, let alone come to California, let alone come to Silicon Valley, let alone go to Stanford, let alone have people entrust me with over $150 million in funding to make games, right? So that's kind of like one of the silver lining of my story, is that really, California is not perfect, the US is not perfect, but what a wonderful country, what a wonderful place for entrepreneurs, for exploration, for people who wanted really almost anything, right? And so I came to the US in '97. I was working in cryptography, not crypto like today, like actual cryptography, biometrics, electronic payments. I was working for a place in Europe called INRIA, which is, so it's INRIA. It's an applied mathematics and computer science research lab. So they co-developed IPv6 starting in the early 90s. And I think IPv6 was just rolled out a few years ago. So just to tell you how advanced they were. So I came here to do my military service. Believe it or not, in France it was compulsory back then. So I did it for a big company, kind of like a IBM-like, but in Europe, that had invented a bunch of technologies, including smart cards. Probably all have a smart card today, whether it's a SIM card or an actual payment card in your wallet or in your phone. And I came to the US to do cryptography, to research cryptography on its commercial applications. We talked about wireless payments back then, which today you can do, of course, with your phone almost every day very easily, but back then it sounded like science fiction. So I did that for 18 months. And then I went to got a job in Boston to do research and management consulting in electronic financial services. I wrote a fun report called The Future of Mobile Financial Services. It was in 98, 99. And one of my predictions was that Japanese companies were experimenting with putting cameras in phones. And I was like, this is so outlandish. What a terrible idea. That's never going to work. And lo and behold, today we're all using our phone for lots of things, but for payments and for phones. Sometimes just to show you that even when you think you're on the forefront of the technology, it's hard to project yourself. And so I was there for a few years. Then I worked at Visa, actually just 2 blocks away from where I'm talking to you today. I'm talking to you from Foster City, California. And then I went to business school at Stanford. Back then, the acceptance rate was probably 3.5, 4%, because it was right after the internet bubble, right? The internet bubble crash. So the economy was pretty terrible back then. It was really hard to find a job, and everybody applied to business school or grad school. So I never thought I would be admitted there, but I did, and I applied only to 3 schools, I believe, and I was very, very lucky. Still, like an amazing opportunity for me. For lots of you, probably you take it for granted. Yeah, I'm at one of the top schools in the world, at Berkeley in California. The future is bright. But as an immigrant, coming where I come from, it wasn't obvious. I'm sure lots of you have either immigrants or have parents who are immigrants. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, you come here with no money and you're like, I'm nobody, I have a very thick accent. The utility companies cannot even understand me on the phone. Maybe they still can't. Fortunately, there is internet today. So Stanford was really wonderful in many ways. And by the way, I do not partake of the Stanford Berkeley rivalry. I don't know. I didn't do my undergrad here, right? So I really have only a glimpse of it through my wife, who went to Stanford for undergrad in WE and CS. But it was wonderful because business school was a way for me to reinvent myself and truly do what I always wanted to do, or find out, explore what I could be doing. And I realized the 2 things I wanted to do is, 1, be an entrepreneur, and second, work in the video game industry. I tried to get into gaming multiple times before in the 90s, early 2000s, but back then it was an industry that was very closed, very hard to get in. You pretty much had to have worked in gaming to get a job in gaming. And so during my 2 years there, I did everything I could in the gaming and entrepreneurship spaces. I did all sorts. I organized panels, I wrote case studies, I organized conferences, I did internships, group projects, all in gaming and or entrepreneurship. And after business school, the economic climate was pretty harsh. It was really hard to find a job, even in gaming. And I had a series of criteria, and the main one was find a job in gaming, pretty much anything. But ideally, work in a startup, work in an online gaming startup, work in an online hardcore gaming startup, if possible, with some esports components, if possible, in California. And those were like really my criteria in some rank order. But really, I would have taken any job in gaming. There was a time component, because I don't know if it's still the case, but being an immigrant and not having a visa, I had 1 year to find a job, right? And after like trying different things, and I ended up one day seeing a press release for a company called Ultimate Arena. I was like, that is really, really cool. It was kind of an online real-time multiplayer matchmaking service where you would compete against other people in a few games: Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, America's Army. I think that was the name of the game. And I was like, this is amazing. I was a lot into online games, MMOs, FPS. I was a huge Counter-Strike player. I was a huge Dark Age of Camelot player, EverQuest, if you ever know these names. But I was like, this is the ideal job, and where is it? And I was like, oh, it's in California. But yeah, but where? And it was in Menlo Park. And a religious person, I'm not supposed to be religious, etc. But it was really interesting that I'd looked for a job for months, and it was literally a block from the room I was subleasing in that summer for, I think, $150 a month. I had a cot, I had a desk and a computer and some clothes. That's pretty much it. And so I emailed them, and they said, "Well, come over." And I arrived like literally a block from where I used to live in Menlo Park for the summer, and it was a prototypical, stereotypical startup. Really crappy offices, leaks. Everybody had camping tables as desks, very simple chairs, etc. Like rundown carpet. Everybody was in, I mean, for you folks it's normal, but everybody was like in t-shirts and shorts and flip-flops. I mean, but it was interesting, right? But really awesome people, super motivated, super some of them were already famous, some of them were already immensely wealthy, and yet they were in these simple offices trying to build something new from scratch. And they didn't want to hire me. They said, look, you're an MBA, you're going to ask for lots of money, you're going to be useless. And I told them, look, give me anything, any pay, anytime. So, okay, tomorrow, 8 a.m., customer service, $10 an hour. So, you know, I had $80,000 in debt from business school. And I was like, but you know what? That sounds great. I'll be there. And so I ended up joining Ultimate Arena. It was started by 3 folks that are pretty famous in Silicon Valley, even more so now. One is David Lowy. If you look him up, he's now the head. I mean, he's been the head of what's called Capital G, which is Google Ventures, Google's growth VC arm. I don't know how many tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of money they manage, but he was before that the head of M&A at Google for many years. So after Expire, that's what he ended up doing. Mike Cassidy is a very famous serial entrepreneur. You can look him up. He has 2 degrees in astrophysics and engineering from MIT, HBS. Was in e-commerce and gaming for many years, and then now he's back to actually building satellites and rockets. Believe it or not, I think he works for a company called Apollo. They just launched a rocket like last week. And Dennis Fong, if you're into gaming, you should look him up. His screen name is Thresh. He was the original esports professional. So the first esports megastar in the 90s. You might have heard of him because he won several Ferraris from the makers of Doom when he competing in the 90s. So he won 2 Ferraris. And he was the original esports athlete that basically almost started the whole space of esports. If you know anything about esports, I'm interested into esports. And so Ultimate Arena, August 2003, very quickly, now talking more about entrepreneurship, Ultimate Arena was a great idea. We thought people would play and wager money to play games. And we realized very quickly that people were not interested in that. The gamers would come to the platform, were more interested in status. They were more interested in the rankings, being in the top rankings. They didn't care about making money through the service. So we had to do a pivot. We were running out of money. And a few months in, the CEO, Mike Cassidy, came to me and said, look, Frederic, it's probably not for you. I'm going to help you find a new job. Give me your resume. It's not going well. Probably we're going to close the company. We're going to try to, back then we didn't say pivot, but we're going to try to find a new idea, but it's going to get really, really rough. I'll help you find a new job. I was like, Mike, are you crazy? Yeah, I feel like I'm part of the Navy SEALs. It's awesome. Every day we come, we push the service we have, Ultimate Arena, but let's try to find a new idea. It's like, okay, up to you, but it's going to get rough. And we almost ran out of money. And back then there was a service called Friendster, which could have been Facebook, but they made a few mistakes. And Facebook basically partly copied them and became Facebook Friendster. Nobody remembers. But we thought, hey, what about we create a social network for gamers, right? That sounded like a great idea. Long story short, we thought about that for a few weeks, a few months. We did a bunch of focus groups, and we probably looked at 4 or 5 ideas. And one day, if you allow me, I can go. I love anecdotes. Sometimes they are interesting, and you can extract some high-level learnings from it. We are doing a focus group. It was probably the 4th or 5th focus group to try to see what gamers were doing, if we could get some learning from talking to hardcore gamers. And I remember we had some pizza. It was $15 for the focus group for the participants. And we're on this idea that we are going to build a web-based profile for gamers that they would populate, that would also populate with some stats extracted from their games. But one thing kept coming back. They kept talking about the fact that before they would get into an online game, let's say Counter-Strike or an MMO, they would turn off all the applications that were not necessary, right? And especially they were talking about instant messengers. And they were saying, look, instant messenger are such a drag on processor power and all that we turn them off. They disrupt me when I try to have the perfect aim, the perfect game. And the first time they said that, we're like, okay. And then after I forgot what was the moment, but there was a moment when it all dawned on us in the room, all the Ultimate Arena people who were in the room. We're like, hey, we need to talk. So we left the focus group. We said, hey, we'll be back. Keep talking. Have at it at the pizza, Coke, pizza, etc. We'll be back. And we're like, holy shit, folks. Maybe this is the idea. An aim for gamer, an instant messenger for gamers. And someone could have told us that idea months before, even a few hours before. Everything was there on the whiteboard in our heads, but there was this crystallizing moment when we're like, oh, shoot, this is an idea. Anyway, long story short, we relaunched the company, launched Xfire. You can probably look it up. If you look it up, there are 3 iterations of Xfire. The original one from 2004 until 2009, etc. We launched it and it started growing like crazy. And we sold it to MTV for $110 million in 2006, actually 16 years ago, in 10 days, 13 days. And that was a very big moment for me because obviously validation by the markets, exit, and also I made some money through stock options, and that helped me reimburse my business school loans, buy a couch, buy a bed. I didn't have a bed, I had a cot, rent a nicer apartment, so on and so forth, buy a better car, and also put money aside for my next company because I thought at some point I was going to, start my own company. So I stayed at Xfire on MTV for a few years. It was an really awesome experience. I met lots of great people there. Denise Fong introduced me to my wife, actually. So I will always be thankful for that opportunity. And it's one of the learnings if you want to start extracting some, it maybe not learnings, but like anecdotes that maybe are learnings or not lessons for sure, more like learnings, at least on my side, is that and you hear that all the time, but one of the most important things, whatever you do, is really the people, the relationships. and it's true today in your class. The people who are in your class are very important. The class before, your class, the class after. I have so many anecdotes about that. But obviously, I mentioned Mike Cassidy and David Lowy became even more famous after that. So they were always references for me, professional references. When I started my company, a bit lucky, my first gaming company in 2009, one of our main investors said, "Hey, I need 6 references." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to send you 15." So I sent him 15 references. I'm kind of an overkill person. And among them, Mike Cassidy, David Lowy. He called them, and then he didn't call the rest. He was like, "These folks vouch for you. They want to invest in your company, so therefore I'm investing." The relationships you're building even today in your class will carry over for decades, right? In so many ways. Even your reputation in your class will carry over. At Stanford, I was known as the gaming person, the gaming guy, right? At the class before, my class, the class after, and still to this day, I have people who contact me based on that. "Oh, you've been in gaming for 20 years, no surprise, you're already in gaming, etc., etc." Anyway, so from Xfire, I left. I went to a company called Round World, made MMOs, and after a year and a half, I decided to leave and start my own company with someone. I don't know how anecdotal you want me to be, because I can go on and on, but talking about people, if you ever start a company, the most important thing, some people say, "Oh, you have to have an idea to start a company." And it's great to have an idea. I think it's important because even if you're on your own, it's good homework. You hone it, you work on it. And when you talk to other people about starting the company, you're extremely convincing, right? Because of course, who is most convincing? Who is most interesting? Whether as a potential co-founder, as a potential investment, the person who says, "Well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, but I'll do whatever, really. I don't really have any idea. I don't care." Or the person say, "I have 3 ideas. They might not lead to anything, but I've been thinking about that idea, this idea, that idea. And what about your ideas? Let's discuss." Automatically, you're more interesting. Automatically, you show that you're committed, that you're motivated, that you're doing your homework, as opposed to being like kind of passive. But the most important thing, I think, when you start a company is your co-founder or co-founders. This is the most important thing. And there are books written about that, but lots of it is unsaid and told. But this is a choice that carries over for a long time. It is reversible. Like sometimes co-founders split, leave their companies, etc. But it's just like getting married. It's just like it's such an important foundational choice. And there are many criteria. I think the main one is trust. People will tell you, "Well, they were starting, oh, the best number is 3, or it's not 1, it's not 3, it's not 2, it's not." Well, there are no perfect numbers. I would say 2 is a great number. But the most important thing, they have to be complementary, right? I'm sure you've heard that. It's good to have, like, if you're an engineer, it's good to have a business person and whatnot, a marketing person. None of that matters. Obviously, you can look at successful companies, and like anything in life, you have examples of everything. You have Jeff Bezos was a solo founder. My wife is a solo founder twice over. I know people who've been very successful with 1, 2, 3, 5 co-founders. All the stories are possible. Everything is possible, right? It's really like the way you build it. The most important thing is trust, and knowing that you have the same values, especially when it comes to business, the same commitment to doing the mission, accomplishing the mission of building a successful company, knowing that it's going to get rough. And then after that, whether the person is a marketing person, a business person, you have all sorts of examples of for instance, I know very well the 2 co-founders of Riot Games, Mark and Brandon. I've known them before they started Riot. Actually, they were on Xfire. And when I first met them and they told me they were going to start a company, I said, "Oh, good luck." 2 business guys, young, no experience, and no experience making games. and now they are like vastly successful in gaming and personally, right? They are gaming billionaires. So you can find all these anecdotes. It's really your own story. One of the things I've learned in entrepreneurship is that your decision is the right decision. And what I mean by that is that your decision is the decision you make. You've done it with some research, a lot, a little. You've debated it. You've bounced it off other people or not. But it's your decision. So therefore, it's the right decision, right? Ideally, if it's the wrong decision, you can make it right. You haven't killed anybody. You haven't killed the company. But your decision, the right decision, because you've integrated all the consequences that you've considered, knowing that you've talked about it, you've thought about it, whether you've made it over 5 minutes or over 5 months. And you're going to have to live with it. So it's your decision, really, in all the meanings of the word. You'll hear anytime you have to make a decision, especially in the early days, if you all want to be entrepreneurs, I think it's the background of the class. There are really no secret recipes. There are no perfect recipe, perfect path. You have some learnings, maybe some lessons, maybe some best practices. But at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want, right? That's one of the beauties of entrepreneurship. I have so many examples of that, right? And you should look at what works and what didn't work. Don't always look at the mega success, because typically once you hear about Drew Houston from Dropbox, Mark and Brandon from Riot, they are post-success, so it's heavily editorialized, it's heavily edited, heavily post-fact rationalized, right? Especially if they are public, they cannot go and share all the vagaries of their business, or, well, we're really not sure about anything. No, you don't say that when you're public, right? So my point is, don't look at just the people who are successful post-success. It's interesting, but it's mostly anecdotal. But really, everything is possible. And some of you might start a company now. Maybe already some of you have started. Some will start in 10 years. I think there are a couple of things, though. This idea of commitment, this idea that, and everybody's different, but and it's important for yourself, but also for your potential founders, potential early employees. Are they people who are wishy-washy? They could do this, they could do that. You know what? I'm gonna go either to Apple, Facebook, etc. But maybe I'll start a company. Well, you can afford to stay away from these people. You don't want conditional co-founders, right? Conditional co-founders are people who say that, or people who say, well, I'll join when we get some external validation of the idea. Let's do a few meetings with VCs or whatnot. If we get funding, then no. As a founder, you're a founder, or you're a first employee. There is a big difference. Nothing wrong being a first employee. Not everybody is ready to be a Navy SEAL or in the army or a line chef, at a restaurant. Not everybody. But if that's part of the topics you folks talk about in class, or as individuals who are thinking about entrepreneurship now or later, the choice of your co-founder and the way you meet them, the way you interact with them, is important. After that, there are lots of short-term and long-term stuff to consider. The thing that's wonderful in Silicon Valley is there is some sort of understanding of what entrepreneurship is, can be. You have all these examples. I mean, Berkeley has generated so many amazing entrepreneurs. So you can have access to them. Most of them are still local. What's wonderful about Silicon Valley is people giving you their time, giving you advice, giving you money, right? I mean, we take it for granted, quite frankly, sometimes, but you have access to all sorts of people around you. And then from there, everything is a journey, right? But I think the commitment to being an entrepreneur is important, and understanding what motivates you. You don't have to know everything about even yourself to start a company. You don't have to have some people have, I need to go first, do 5 years here, 2 years there. No, there really are no paths, right? But and it also, as you graduate or contemplating graduating, the first years are usually very exploratory. Even after business school, I forgot the stats, but I want to say in the first 2 years after business school, I think 75% of the people change jobs, right? So as long as you keep your integrity, your reputation, as long as you're truthful, whether you start a company or you get a job, you will meet situations that are not perfect, and you just decide to cope with them, try to make them better, or you leave, right? You're also obviously in an environment that's extremely privileged now, because the economy, despite crypto and everything being down 35%, 40% since the beginning of the year, it's still amazing. I mean, you know, if any of you want to drop out of school, I'm not advocating one for the other. If any of you drops out and wants a job, likely you will find one within a month, right? So not even that. So yes, I'm trying to think. So I'm in so many directions. And sorry, I mentioned the organizer of the class. I have 3 kids and I have like 120 employees. So I really didn't have time to put together a formal presentation with all my learnings, etc. So it's more like a story of an older guy sharing some anecdotes and some learning. Obviously, one thing I want to say is that if at any point you folks need any help or anything, I'm always only one email away, one phone call away, right? At any point of your journey, whether you decide to become an entrepreneur or not. It's not for everybody, I would tell you that. What you probably have heard is that the highs are really high and the lows are really low, and you don't realize that necessarily, but you really have to go through that. Obviously, when I say that, it's typically in a business context. Okay, I'm not talking. It's the privileged context of the Silicon Valley model I am representing, which is VC funded, investor funded, right? There are many ways to build a business, right? My great grandfather was a butcher, so that was a business, right? So you know, there are all sorts of. Here I'm representing, embodying in some ways the one of the typical ways to start a business in Silicon Valley, which is some ideas in tech, and then you get funding from other people, and then you share the risks and the reward, right? But entrepreneurship, as you've heard, is extremely hard. It's you really like you have to be kind of crazy to do it. You must have heard that. When the lows are really low, I mean, like especially as CEO, you're always in representation. You're in representation with your employees. You're in representation with your investors. You're in representation with the outside world, your customers, right? And it's very personal. It's because you inevitably associate your company with your success, with your persona, with your life. It gets slightly different when you start having kids, or you get into relationship, married or not, and have kids. You can have a bit more distance. Maybe when you have also some more means, some more wealth, you get more distance. But it's very, very personal. It's very intense. It's not 9 to 5. You've heard that before. You kind of have to have this drive. You have to have this really absolute commitment to the success of your company, whatever it takes, whatever it means. You have to deal with people all the time, especially as a CEO. You have to be a people's person, I guess, or become one. You have to be constantly in representation, right? In a meeting, you have to control your emotions. You're representing the company, you're representing management. People don't trust you with their jobs and their earnings, etc. Right? So, but I saw there was a question actually. So, throughout your journey as an entrepreneur, did you have a mentor or someone you could refer to for advice? If yes. If yes, how did you go about finding that person? Oh, it's a very good question. Yes. So, two things there. One, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is mentors. Who are mentors, right? The best mentors are people with whom you went to battle with whom you've worked, not to battle with them, but alongside them, right? So the best mentors are people you will develop rapport and relationships with over a job, over a project, over the years. It's not like, well, sometimes you can get this one call from this one person, but the thing with entrepreneurship, just like it's some people, it's you've heard this expression, oh, it's lonely at the top, right? What does that mean? Does it mean that I'm in my Ferrari driving on the highway with looking at the sky and like feeling all important, and no, it is not that. It's lonely because there are very, very few people with whom you can have absolutely honest, open, candid, transparent relationships. And my co-founder is one of them. I think I can share 98% of everything about the business, even sometimes personal stuff, but otherwise it's very rare, right? And so mentors are important because they can help you on at certain points. But typically, the interesting thing, my best mentors were the people I've met at certain jobs, right? Like my David Lowy is one of them. One of them became one of my main investors, Mitch Lasky at Benchmark. I would say is a mentor. Now he's less of a mentor because he's on my board. So he's an investor, so it's different. I cannot go and blabber about, oh, I'm having like some internal turmoil about this VP of marketing. My next hire is going to be like, hey, that's, you have to be careful what you share with them. But with a mentor, you can be ideally very open. A mentor is just someone who can slap you around. I wouldn't say he's a mentor, but like there are a few people who slapped me around at some point. I didn't realize how silly I was, or immature, or that I did something that was maybe disrespectful. Don't worry, nothing crunchy, nothing like I don't know, nothing horrible. But they say, hey, Frederic, this is not great. Like, and I got super scared, and that helped me progress. There was one example of a guy, GSB guy from Argentina, very successful entrepreneur, very successful investor, and he had given me his time when I was just, 3 or 4 times. And then when I started my company, I forgot when, I went back once. When I started the company, then started, we spent some time together. I was blabbering, and it was super friendly, etc. But there was one time when I saw him, and it was, okay, well, make some progress, come see me, and then I'll decide if I want to invest. And for some reason in my head, I had said, well, he said a date after the summer, so regardless, I'm going to go see him after the summer. But he really meant, come see me when you're ready to receive an investment. And I went there, and I was talking with him, and there were 2 potential co-founders that I'd been working with for months, 2 very good friends who decided not to start the company with me for personal reasons. No harm's done, but I was finding myself with no co-founder. It was 2009, sorry. And then I spent another hour with him, and he was like, okay. And I was like, well, you know what? Like, I'm sorry, I didn't have a project for you to invest in, but what about you come visit me in the Bay Area? And it was like, hey, Frederic. Basically made me understand that I was kind of immature and rude, and I had not wasted his time, that he could give me a lot of time, but that day I had kind of overstepped some boundaries by being a little bit too casual with his time and saying, well, it doesn't matter if it didn't happen today, but like, come visit me and then we'll shoot the breeze and you decide if you want to invest. And it was like, I remember like having this very cold, what's the expression, like cold on my spine. I was like, oh shoot, what have I done? I've stepped, when you say something stupid and you realize you did say something stupid. And every year on that date, I send him an email. Say thank you so much for that time, like now many years ago. But it's really, the mentors are people you respect, people you know well, and you have to work at it. It's not the mentor who is like waiting for you in the temple. I mean, you kind of have to like develop the rapport, the relationship, and also structure their time. Appreciate the time they give you, whether it's 10 minutes, half an hour. Knowing that with certain mentors, some of the most precious ones are the ones with whom you can just come with. Not everything will always be structured like in a dialectic fashion. Like, hey, I have A, gray, I have B, light gray, and then I'm trying to figure out C, part 3, and what color it should be. Sometimes it's like that, sometimes it's not like that. Do your homework, but also the best mentors are the ones you can go to and be like, hey, I have no clue, and I'm very vulnerable. I'm sorry if I'm clueless, but can you please guide me? And sometimes you don't realize how, it's a strong word, but how ignorant you are. But you are like Castellan. When you start to feel you're super ignorant, super naive about lots of things. And then I think keeping the relationship with them. Whenever anybody gives you time, please do send a thank you note, even if it's an SMS, even if it's an email these days, if you folks still use email. But that's something very important. I think it's being grateful for the time and the opportunities people give you. I have on my calendar like so many of these yearly dates, right? One is coming up, the acquisition of Xfire by NTV, April 14th, 2006. So every year, I send to the Xfire crew an email, hey, happy anniversary, right? It's like little things like that. Every year I send an email and I'm in touch with the person who gave me my first job after my military service. I also, like today, I actually sent an email to the person who brought me to the US to do my military service, who is now back in France and is the mayor of a small town in the south of France. 25 years ago, on a regular basis, and an email, hey, thanks again for the opportunities. Here's what happened. I had my third kid a few months ago. I actually went to take a picture of our first office in Foster City 25 years ago. Just this morning when I sent it to him, hey, do you recognize that place? Do you remember? I think it's very important. So building rapport and then looking through your network, right? I mean, and building it up over time. You will, the thing that you realize also is that you will stress about lots of decisions, lots of entrepreneurship is like an open-end MMO, right? It's like the most libertarian open space MMO, unstructured. Everything is possible. There are some structure you can adopt in Silicon Valley, especially, but for technical questions, the answer is typically very easy to find. The answer might not be easy to understand or to learn about, but you have lawyers, you have finance people, you have VCs. So as an entrepreneur, especially if you're a CEO, you have to be versant in lots of topics. You have to be kind of dangerous enough, but you have specialists who can help you, right? Technical questions, legal questions, finance questions, accounting questions. Like, you know, when I went to business school, you know, if some of you consider going to business school, likely don't necessarily write that in your essays because it's funny, but I probably did. It's like, well, I want to learn more about accounting and finance and all the business stuff. And I was like, man, and in business school, it's not that I hated finance, but I just wasn't good at it. I wasn't interested. I was forcing myself. And now I'm hiring finance people, right? They work for me, right? So of course I have to have a level of proficiency with finance, with legal stuff, etc. But I don't need to be the ultra specialist, and that's something. The technical decisions are actually the easiest. So the mentors are very useful for other stuff that are either professional, big decisions, sometimes small decisions, right? But sometimes also personal decisions, because if you decide to start a company, it is very personal. It bleeds over in your personal lives. And if you have a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, etc., right? This carries over. You see, like, you know, you go home with your work, you go home with your worries, with your emotions, and you go home with all that. It's a baggage in some ways, and you cannot always talk about it with everybody all the time, right? My wife is an entrepreneur, business person. We talk business all the time. I cannot share 100% of everything that's going on in my company, even the most worrisome stuff, for all sorts of reasons. You know, I worry about certain metrics, I worry about certain stuff, etc. Like, you know, but sometimes you have to, like, you know, so sometimes you have to find someone else, a mentor that is a neutral person, almost, that can with whom you can vent and blabber and talk through, seek advice. Yeah, and so I don't know where I was in my story, and I've been blabbering myself for a while. So maybe, I mean, we could go to question. I can talk about Manticore games, the multiverse, crypto.
Yeah, thanks, Frederic. We can go into a Q&A now. If anyone in the class has a question, you can come up. Looks like no one has a
We have a question.
One person does. Okay.
Oh, wow, it's very formal. The person has to come to the front. Hello.
Hey,
Okay.
thank you so much for being there. I was wondering, I've seen that Core is branding is itself as the portal of the multiverse. And I was wondering, like, do you think that people are educated enough to understand how the metaverse works? Or is it maybe too early for that?
Wow, deep question. Oh, I love it. So I don't know if everybody heard the question, but basically the question, I don't know your name, by the way, but the question is Core on the website somewhere probably is advertising itself as the portal to the multiverse. And basically that's something that resonates with users and with people in general. It's a very, very, very good question. I would say it's yes or no, right? Sorry. Yeah, I would say yes or no, but mostly no, right? So one, it's funny because we should update wherever you found that. So couple of things, right? Whether it's the name of your company, whether it's your motto, vision, mission, etc. These things are never perfect. And just like your pitch, your presentation, it's never going to be perfect. At the end of the day, it's yours. So you have to own it and work with it and change it when necessary. Like for instance, the name of a company, it doesn't really matter, and it matters. We all know that. There are very successful companies that have terrible names. Riot Games, now everybody's like, oh, Riot Games, the feast, right? But when they launch for many of our, like, who are these idiots? Riot Games, that's so arrogant, stupid. What Riot? What is the why a Riot? Why a feast? Is it like a taekwondo? Anyways, but it didn't matter, right? So, but it's important because there's something you're portraying and projecting out. We choose the multiverse based on, so we've been talking about the multiverse, metaverse for a long time with my friends and my co-founder. And actually, we decided to use that publicly as part of our vision, mission, and as part, I guess, of a motto somewhere, or slogan somewhere on the website. In late 2017, we were talking about it in 2017. We're talking about it over the summer, and we're like, is it too pedantic? Is it? And there is a science fiction writer called Michael Moorcock, who I believe lives in California now. He's a genius writer. He wrote a bunch of amazing fantasy and sci-fi books, and they all seem different, but they're all part of the multiverse. And the idea of the multiverse is these parallel universes that don't connect, right? And that's what kind of Core is. But the thing is that the industry now has adopted the term metaverse more. So we're actually switching back to metaverse, because I was like, look, if we had like 5 billion users, I would call it the multiverse, but like we're still in growth and pre-success. So like, let's be a little humble. Nobody cares that Frederic Descamps at Manticore calls it the multiverse, and it gets in the way when I talk to the press, when I talk to the people. I have to do what I just did now, which is waste like 2 or 3 minutes explaining our vision of the multiverse and how it's different from the metaverse. Who cares? You have to pick your battles. So the metaverse, I guess the question is like how prevalent is it? So the metaverse is part of the zeitgeist, right? It's in this era where people are talking about it, and more companies are talking about it, and it's like such an all-encompassing, vague definition that, I don't know even if there was a drink company that says, yeah, we want to be part of the metaverse. I was like, okay. When you say metaverse, it's the way we define it, it has become a super category for now, and I think it's a term that's here to stay. There are some terms that will be fad and go away, but I think it's a term that would be better and better understood. It is a little vague for the most part. It's a bit all-encompassing. Some people tie it back to MMOs. Well, the MMOs were already a metaverse. So the metaverse is a mix between virtual worlds. I think they're going to, and maybe gaming a little bit. For us, it starts in gaming. It doesn't end there. For the consumers, when you build a company, you be building a product or service, you have to think about who are your audience, right? And there is an audience that is these days easier to access, easier to please, but very dangerous to be delusioned by the fact that they receive your ideas very well. It's the VCs, the investors, and the press, right? The tech press, the gaming press. If I go to Dean Takahashi, who is one of the main gaming writers, and I say multiverse, metaverse, Dean is like, he's actually bored probably at this point, but he's like, he knows what I'm talking about. He gets it. He could write books and books about it. He organizes conference about the metaverse, right? If I talk to a VC, most VCs today know about it, they understand it. The average user, probably not, right? For them, it's still a vague concept. Actually, some of them might have a repulsion towards it because they are gamers who are like, oh, it's a bunch of fluff. So you have to substantiate it. For us, it's kind of like one of these horizon toward which we are driving with Core. The idea for us that it's a universe of infinite possibilities. By the way, you have to be ready when you start a company. You kind of have to be a little lyrical sometimes, and it's going to sound like BS, but it does help whether you use it top down, bottom up. You're going to use everything you can to build your idea, explain it to other people. Yesterday with my execs, we spent 6 hours working on a new version of our vision and our mission. This is a really hard exercise. We've done 2 or 3 sessions now. The process itself is interesting. The people you involve, the way you do it. As a CEO, I can tell them, but I try to be not say much and be a disruptor. But we spend so much time on that, and we use different analogies. We use other companies' vision, mission, and likely the metaverse is still going to be part of it. But for the consumers, the end users, it's still something that is not well defined. I think lots of people think it's part Web3, part crypto, part VR, part virtual worlds, part gaming, part UGC. I think it's kind of all of that. You see, as an entrepreneur, it's good to be on a wave sometimes, ideally a little bit ahead of the wave, to use a surfing analogy. It does help with your funding. It does help with getting the money. It does help with recruiting people. It does help with the press. Ultimately, I don't know if that was your question, but ultimately, the ultimate judge is the end user, the consumer, the value proposition, right? So that's something we've been debating, right? The metaverse, for some people, it's appealing, but we have to define it a little better. And actually, we are going to change the way we talk about it. We are going to change our product at the same time to try to make it even more consumer friendly, because right now it's still a little abstract. So I don't know if that was the answer to your question, or if you have a follow-up question, or if you're like, man, that was so vague and so long.
Yeah, it answered very well. Thank you so much. Actually, I totally agree with what you said. Like, it's very hard for people to understand metaverse because there are a lot of other related notions that are hard to understand. And talking about it, like I'm currently launching a French media which aims to democratize notions such as blockchain, NFT, metaverse to people to make it understandable for everyone. So that's why I was wondering, like what you were thinking, and I was also wondering if there was like any point of contact that you preferred, so that I can maybe talk with you a little bit more on the project and have your insights.
Sure. Yeah, you can. I mean, you can first and foremost. You can add me on LinkedIn, right? I mean, I know you folks are I assume all much younger than I am. I'm almost 50, so we're probably way younger. So I won't make the usual joke, but then typically when you said you actually do make the joke, like say, oh, I'm actually without being rude, or I don't want to be rude, but then actually you're rude, right? So I don't want to make the joke about young people, which media you use, but like LinkedIn is an amazing social network for your professional career. I spend probably half an hour, if not more, every day on LinkedIn adding people. I think one of the things I've learned over the years, and it took me decades to be able to say that as a French person, but also as someone, Americans can say, oh, I'm very good at this, I'm very good at that. It comes really hard for French people. French people never said, because the French system beats you down if you say that. Not wanting to go back all the way to the French Revolution. But I can say, like, one of the things I've done well over the years is build a network of people that know me and trust me. And people think, oh, it's because I go to events. Actually, I don't. I'm not that social. It's a lot through helping other people, connecting with them, sending them articles. keeping in touch with them over time. Even if it's not like having a dinner or coffee or a meeting with them every month for 2 hours. No, with some, yes, but it's more like the little touch points once you've established a good relationship with rapport. And LinkedIn is wonderful for that. Any industry, typically you want to get in, you find people on LinkedIn, I mean, other media too. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but it's really like, you give me almost anybody, I can reach out to them. Not because I am who I am today. No, I mean, it's easier. But like even 20 years ago, I was doing that, right? One of the reasons I came to the US is I hand wrote 200, 250 application letters. Back then in France, you had to handwrite them. And then add your resume and sign your resume. The only thing that could be Xerox was your resume. The application letter, the motivation letter, whatever, had to be handwritten. And it was by mail, right? Not by email. But my point is, use LinkedIn, add me on LinkedIn. It's a great network to celebrate people's new jobs, promotions, know about more people, and then inch your way into whatever your industry is or whatever the networks you want to be part of, more than anything else. I mean, it's crazy interesting. Like, it's great. I have so many anecdotes about how I connected with people on LinkedIn. And when you connect, I mean, obviously it's not obvious, but add a little note, tell them something about yourself. Don't impose on people. One of the worst things, I used to own the URL, I don't do coffee. Don't ask people for coffee. Look, when you're a student, they will forgive all that. They might actually do it. But remember, when you ask for coffee, it means half an hour of driving, 45 minutes of coffee, maybe an hour, another half hour of driving. So you've spent 2 hours of someone's time. And, so try to like, when you connect with people, like have one or two questions, maybe just one. Don't ask them for a call. You can with me now. I'm saying like in general, right? LinkedIn is just like something. And I receive like emails on invitation. Oh, well, let's catch up. I want to learn more about Manticore. And I'm like, look, I wake up at 5:30. Typically by my kids, they need to be in school by 7:30. We have a baby. I have 120 employees. By the time I wake up, I have emails, I have Slack, I have the kids, I have my wife, I have my family. My time is all accounted for. So when you ask for coffee, so anyway, there's always a way to like for instance, yesterday I have several hobbies, and yesterday I connected with someone on LinkedIn about one of my hobbies, and the reason I think he added me was because I have like 8 or 9 very prominent people in that hobby that we have in common on LinkedIn. So that person presumes, or maybe it's the profile picture, I don't know. That person presumes that I'm part of the top people of that industry. But no, I mean, for me, it's just a hobby. And then I said, hey, love your products. I have like 3 bottles of your stuff. And then he was online. So we started having an exchange, right? And now he's like inviting me to come visit their chateau. It's not wine, it's perfumes. But but my point is, yeah, you can add me on LinkedIn. It's a great network, great networking tool. You can reach almost anybody in Silicon Valley on LinkedIn. They won't always respond, but try to make it a little personalized. Don't put too much pressure on them. Say something nice about their company. Anyways, yeah. Sorry. But that sounds like a cool idea, like education. Like I think that's a huge deficit in crypto and Web3 right now is education. I mean, if I start. And so I think there is a big need, and I think it's I don't know where people stand on crypto. Sometimes it's like saying, for some people it's still like, hey, I work for I was going to say Trump, but well, I guess I said it. I work for Trump, or I trade weapons that kills babies. That literally is that. Like for some people, it's that level of stupidity and ignorance about crypto and Web3. Sorry, I said it. When you talk to most people, we did a big focus group because in gaming, crypto is very polarizing, at least in the gaming press and with some game industry people, executives, etc. And that's something very important. Whatever you do with your company or your service, like talk to the real people. Everybody's reading, would argue, but talk to your target audience. And some people will tell you, well, it's not statistically significant. Okay, I get it. It has to be an n equals 250 or whatever. I get it. I took statistics, but talk to people, do focus groups, interviews, maybe surveys, and just I have so many anecdotes. Just like the X-Fire anecdote I mentioned before, we did like 4 or 5 big study groups on the phone in person, and then it took like a while for the idea to be like, oh my God, instant messenger for gamers. But we had it all on the whiteboard in our heads, but they had to say it, and we all had this idea at the same time. So, we did a big focus group studies, like 60 gamers or so of all sorts. Only 1/4 was selected for their interest and involvement in crypto. The rest was mobile gamers, virtual worlds gamers, MMO gamers, RPG gamers, two age groups, under 39 and above 39, was it? Yeah. And we talked to them for hours. They didn't know it was us, but it was someone else. But we're all in this like one-way mirror virtual room, and we're listening to them. And there was a moderator, and we asked them a bunch of questions. And the things we found out about crypto, and you're beyond that obviously, but just it's an interesting anecdote, is that out of the 60 people, none, zero, zilch, nada, aucun said, I hate crypto, I don't want crypto, this is bullshit, the environment, exploitative, blah, blah, blah. Nothing, nobody. They all said, at the very least, I'm actually interested. My spouse, my kids, my friends all do it. I kind of have FOMO, fear of missing out. Maybe it's too late, but I'm curious. Of course, you had the maxis. People are, yeah, I have like $20,000 in crypto, and I made like $10,000 in the last 6 months. And here is what's the definition of an NFT for everybody else in the room, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But the vast majority in the middle, were people who had engaged with crypto, were doing it a little, sometimes more, were all very positive about it. And they were really not selected for that, right? So believe me, the whole time we're like, because we know we have some very big crypto plans, confidential, and our friend NDA here. And we were like, hey, we know we're going to have a reaction, but the reaction is going to be from the press and from some gaming folks, the actual play, and some strident parts of the Twitter sphere. And who gives a flying right ass about these people? It's your company, it's your business. But the vast majority were super interested. The other part was that they were all saying they want to make more money. Everybody. Like, they were all saying, we had a beautician in a 20-year-old car with a mold on the roof, literally. She was like, look, if I can make $2 more an hour by engaging on earning, playing on earning, because I love games, and if on top of that I could make a little bit of money, even if it's $2 an hour, I'm golden. And I was like, I asked her, like, do we know how much she's making? Well, she's making basically $15.5 an hour, right? That's the reality, right? All the way to people who have families, etc. They will all say, hell yeah, if I can make more money with cryptos through speculations. Anyways, I can talk about that for hours, but it's probably beyond the point. Did you experience any challenges with being a founder as a non-citizen? Visa stuff, and how did you deal with them? It's a very good question. Very, very good question. Interesting, because today two green cards that we did for employees were granted. So we're as a company, I've always made sure that we have very supportive, I don't want to say generous. Generous in the business world can be misconstrued. Like when you say family, it's family is different than the business. Generous has to be put between quotes in a business context, but we're very proactive, I would say, and even pushy. I'm very pushy in general, but with visa stuff. So for instance, my general counsel, my GC says, hey, FYI, Shweta's H1B expiring in a year and a half. Should we offer her the green card? Answer is yes, always yes. Or should we wait? Like my finance guy, he's from Berkeley, but I'm going to misrepresent him, would say, well, we should be a little careful here. What if she leaves? Should we wait until like the 9 months? Like, why wait? We go to her and we say, Shweta, would you like us to do the green card? And guess what she said, right? Of course, yes. So today we granted we helped two of our folks get the green cards. Yeah, I mean, so I think there are a couple of things. The visa stuff. One thing that's really wonderful about Silicon Valley is Have people made fun of my accents? No. Should they? Maybe. But I don't remember any situation where people either you have some jokes sometimes being a foreigner, like French, would make jokes about certain things, etc. But the point is, look, some people are crazy enough to give $150 million to a foreign person here with a thick accent. I'm American now, but it's a very, 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 very welcoming environment. Very, it's a lot about business. People don't care. You create where you come from, your accent. Of course, as a foreign person, you have to be able to project yourself, make yourself understood, make yourself credible, make yourself intelligible, be convincing. Okay, and yes, it's probably harder when you're a foreigner. You have an accent, and you're not used to like projecting on the stage, etc. The visa stuff, yes. So it was super hard the first years. I mean, if your parents are immigrants, if you're an immigrant yourself, I don't know how it is these days, but because I'm American, but it was super hard. When I came here, I was on a F1 visa for my military service, and nobody wanted to hire me. I was too probably phobic, even though the economy was booming. It was super hard. It was super humbling, humiliating. I don't want to sound like a victim. I choose to be here. I want to be here. If I'm not happy, I go back where I come from. But I was like, I'll do everything. I'm going to go commando. I'm going to go Navy SEAL. I'm going to go overkill on securing my spot in the US, right? So I look for a job. I ended up taking a job in Boston. And then the thing to understand as a foreigner is that you are, I was going at the mercy, but that sounds like too much. You're dependent on your visa, right? I got an H-1B. I was like, yeah, H-1B. Well, if you are let go, if you are fired, if you are laid off, I think you have 3 weeks to basically be out, right? And there are two administrations you never want to mess with in the US. The IRS and the INS, and maybe the DOJ, of course. And never overstay your welcome. And you have to basically work with the system. And that's why for many years, I probably even couldn't have been an entrepreneur because one, I didn't have the money, I didn't have the visa. So for many years, I was literally like, there were several moments that were, I don't want to say humiliating, but they were tough, rough. There was one company, I told them way too early I was leaving, and they were restructuring the company. They say, Frederic, we're going to let you go. And I was like, oh, no, Visa, the company, was transferring my H-1B visa to Visa. And it's a matter of weeks. I'll stay without pay. And I basically begged them. I was like, do not let me go. Please, 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 my new visa, I'll work for free, right? That's what it took. As an entrepreneur, so as a founder, later I had, the thing is, there are multiple visa you can have, and again, it's a technical question, and I don't remember all the answers, but of course, the holy grail is the green card, but short of that, before I didn't have a green card, I had an H-1B, and then I had a green card when I started my first company already. So, but I think you can start a company with an OPT, right? Which is if you're a foreigner, you have 1 year of a mini green card where you can do whatever you want. So you take that, and then if you start a company and get funding, then you can have an entrepreneur visa, and those are fairly easy to get. So, sorry, I went a little long on this one. What's your best tip on fundraising and approaching it? Oh my goodness.
We have someone who's going to ask a question in person. So.
Oh, okay. So maybe priority over the. Okay. Hello.
Hello. This is like side note. Do you know Patrick Blanc at Visa by any chance?
Patrick, what? Patrick
Blanc, LANC. He also he the same department and is also from, I think, a similar area in France to you.
Oh no! How do you spell his last name?
BLANC.
Oh, like the color.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? No, I don't know him. But I was at Visa like a long time ago, right? So, is he a friend of yours?
Yeah. But more related to Manticore, since the games are free, what is the revenue model that you guys have? Are you guys data brokers or?
Very good question. Yes, a very good question. So the current business model, which is going to change, is very much Web 2.0. Okay, sorry, it's going to sound lame, but it's a very similar model as Roblox. And the Roblox business model, which I think is still vastly misunderstood, is basically a rev share with the creators, right? So we provide the platform, we provide the services, we provide the engine that allows you to make games, publish them, change them. We provide the platform that allows you to do your own live services, your own marketing, and your own monetization. You can monetize your games in core any way you want. Subscription, no subscription, microtransactions, free to play, premium, you decide. All of that, even if you want. And then it's up to you to make the best games. And then you have some traffic, the people who come play the game. The people who come play the game decide at some point to spend some money. Typically, it's like between 3 and 4% of the free-to-play. Typically, free-to-play, the model is 2% we spend. Okay, but here in our platform, it's a little higher, 3 to 4%. And then we take 50% and we give 50% to the creators. That's the current business model. If you start a business, you know that there are multiple ways. There was a question about fundraising. At any stage, people won't always expect that you have all the answers, but at least you should have a plan. You should be versant and versant, well-versed in all the aspects of your business, even if you're just starting today. Someone I know very, very well is fundraising, and her company is very early stage, and she did a call an hour and a half with some investors. They followed up with some questions about the business model, and she was like, hey, what should I answer? And they were asking also, what is your exit strategy, which is an important question, but one of the lamest questions somewhat. You're just starting. Why are you planning about exiting? You never exit, you get acquired. You sell your company only if it's like a factory has been running for 20 years and you give it to someone and you leave. Otherwise, you're being acquired. They will want you to stay. Anyway, but you're expected to at least have thought about it, right? It's just like the thing I was talking about, ideas, right? If you're starting like today, you just decided a minute ago you didn't want to be an entrepreneur, now you're an entrepreneur. Okay, people are going to give you a huge break, some slack. But if you've been thinking about it for a while, you should have an idea. You should have 2 or 3 ideas, and you should have like every day, every hour, maybe every day, you put some stuff, some more anxiety. So the business model is something you should always be willing to talk about and have thought about it. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. Advertising is typically not the answer. If you say advertising, most investors will go. The thing with if you're interested in crypto, Web3, is that there is a huge amount of new opportunities for new economic opportunities. Some we've seen, some we haven't even conceived, right? Like, because rest of the way we think about even Web3 is still skeuomorphics, as Chris Dixon would say. I haven't believed he invented that word. I went back in time because he mentioned it's stuff we've seen from Web 2.0 that we're projecting on Web3. But yeah, so that our business model is going to evolve very, very drastically. We were not satisfied with it. We're satisfied with it for a while, and then we're like, we need to open up the economy. We need to make it more peer-to-peer. Right now, it's very much like players come, give money to us, and then we share the money with the creators. Therefore, we rely on all these flywheel effects. When you open it up and you make it fully peer-to-peer, lots of things can happen. Creators to creators, creators to players, players to players, maybe players to creators, right? I mean, it just opens up everything and creates new opportunities you haven't even thought about.
Yeah, and additionally, so since the business model was premised on creating a platform, how did you get to the point at which you had this many games? Like, did you run into kind of the network effect problem where initially there's like no users and then at a certain point you gained, or how did you overcome that problem?
Oh, I mean, this is the crux of the matter, right? I mean, it's like, you have many models you should read about. You have status as a service. There is like a foundational blog post written probably 10 years ago by I forgot the name. Geez, I talked to him like 6 months ago. Anyways, look for status as a service. Of course, everything network effects, aggregation theory. There is also an article on strategy about the aggregation effects, aggregation theory. You have all sorts of things like that. Like, look, the best users are the users that come back, stick around, and the users that bring other users, right? And you can study network effects. And sometimes they are, like for instance with Xfire, network effects were crazy because the first thing you would do in Xfire is add your friends, because otherwise it was meaningless. You have an instant messenger with no friends, right? But we launched it with no friends. So it was like, oh, you go into Xfire and it's empty, it's like crickets. And then you have to clunkily invite your friends, and you're like, you're not even sure what Xfire does, what it is, what the value proposition. You've installed it maybe, in the early days. So why would you invite your friends? There is a high cost there. Like, hey, you invited me to scrappy service, come on. So one thing we did is we actually gave by default. So in Xfire, you could see your friends, but you could also see friends of friends, FOF, friends of friends. But if you have no friends, you have no friends of friends. So we gave everybody an automated friend, which was actually an account created manually by me at first, and I would add 500 new users to it. So any user would have this automatic friends. It was called test friend, actually. That was a manually created account. That this account had 500 friends, and then inevitably you would have some would be online. So we'd have this what we used to call the Christmas tree effect. Even a first-time user at Xfire, you would see, oh, you see all these little icons of people playing these games. Anyways, with Manticore games, where do you start the flywheel? Where do you start the network effects? You have something that sometimes is presented as bad. It's called the build it and they will come. Build it and they will come is you build something and you're like, yeah, because it's so good, so beautiful, so great, they will inevitably come. It rarely works that way. You have examples successful of that, but it's you kind of have to want to build network effect. You have to understand the flywheel, the network effects, how you're going to trigger them. And then with something so complex, what we have is a multi-sided marketplace. You have the creators. What are the creators doing? They are coming to the platform because they intrinsically want to create interactive experiences, maybe games, maybe Unity is too complex, maybe Unreal is too complex, or maybe they want to try something else. And Manticore, Core is very powerful. So they come, they make their games. Their opus magnus, their best creation, but it takes months. So if you say build it and they will come for the creators, it will take forever because they will come, they need to learn the platform, they need to learn how to make a game. Today we have Word, we have Google Docs. It doesn't mean that everybody becomes a Pulitzer winning writer, right? But it's super easy to write today. You have Grammarly, etc. Same thing with Core. It will drastically lower the bias, but we had to add like bunch of programs to get creators in. We had also to put incentives that the creators bring their own users, their own players, they do their own marketing. And then on the player side, it's something we're still working on, and it's not perfect. And almost every company that ended up benefiting from any sort of network effects will tell you it's trial and error, and you hope that more than 50% of what you try over time works. Sometimes it takes one or two things, right? And sometimes you have to be a little pushy, right? There are companies that do things that are a little pushy. I mean, remember the social games on Facebook, very, very pushy. So the best is, of course, when your thing goes viral, right? I mean, what happened with Roblox? Roblox, it took them 14 years to take off, but all of a sudden they started realizing that the kids were talking about the games on Roblox in 2014, 15. That's when they really started thinking of 14, 15, 16. And literally they started realizing, oh, we own that high school and that middle school. And they were like, what are the top games? Well, the top games were stuff called like Escape the Toilet Bowl. It is what it is. You're in a toilet bowl and you have to escape the toilet bowl on little carts because stuff are coming at you. Okay, let's put it that way. That went viral, right? People are like, oh my God, it's like if you have kids or it's like, it's a toilet humor, right? And all sorts of games like that where it took them for a while, right? So it's a mix of trial and error. It's a mix of using the theory, but the aggregation theory is that what about you get a few kind of nexus of some communities, and then they will pull the rest over time or sometimes faster, right? I mean, and to be candid, sometimes it's silly stuff that work well. I mean, within TikTok, right? I mean, one of the original, actually, Berkeley grad, what's his name? He was CS Berkeley grad. James Hong. Maybe some of you know him. So James Hong, nice, funny, he says family man, etc. But James Hong started something that today would probably, today would be like, oh my God, it's horrible. He started something called Hot or Not. Can you guess what Hot or Not was? Hot or Not was uploaded pictures of people and you would just vote. It's kind of like the original Tinder, but no dating. It was just literally Hot or Not. Like you would just be like, and it sounds like you look at Facebook. I'm not saying that's the way you should start your business, but I would say don't be too prissy and too cute about it. You have people who give you money, you have responsibilities, you have employees, you kind of have to get into some growth. There are some stuff we will never do as Manticore, but when you look Facebook, I mean, you've seen the movie, you know how it started. It was not always very pretty and cute, right? And Hot or Not, you know, likewise. So you have to find stuff that would make people talk about your service, right? Whatever it is, right? Yes, it's pretty obvious, right? Like, if you create, but the thing is, oh, I create a great product, people would naturally talk about it. No, it doesn't really happen like that way. Except it happens sometimes. For instance, like with my new kid, for her, we used it's a certain type of baby milk bottle called Kindy, K-I-I-N-D-E, and it's so genius. It's two MIT dads. It's so genius that someone mentioned that to us, but it's not just one person. At least 6 people said, "Oh, you have to use Candy. You have to use Candy," and we use it like, "Holy moly!" I'm holding the baby. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so light. This is so wonderful." You know. So what do I do? Every time I meet a parent, Candy, you know Candy, right? 2 friends had babies in the last 3 months. Candy, a friend of mine is expecting a baby next week too. Actually, I've already emailed them about Candy, right? Candy. I don't even know how it's pronounced, right? So I don't know if that answered your questions. Really small anecdotes, but you know, it's something that doesn't come like the thing you see about entrepreneurship, and be very careful, is all the case studies, business school or otherwise, like, oh, you know, like he's in his yacht, or she's at the top of the tower, she's looking at the horizon, she remembers the class at HBS, and she's dominating the world from the top of our $5 billion. This is freaking BS. What they don't show you is the day-to-day where you're like super scared, you're super humble, it's hard, it sucks, and you're really trying. It's just like, you know, like if you look at ex-military, like, oh, one of my best friends was a business who was Navy SEAL for 15 years. Well, he spent most of his career being miserable, cold, swimming is his own, you know, being staking a point for 4 days, you know, like that's most of their careers, training, being hard, being scared, etc. But now they have the glory in the movies. You see what I mean, right? It's the same. So it's just with growth, right? The growth, getting your there are so many ways of doing it. You have to try different things. You know, there are also great article about is it the 100? I forgot the name of it. It's basically find 100 people who are mega passionate about your product, and that's the beginning of something, right? So, anyways, it's a product market fit and all that. You can talk about that for hours.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
We're coming towards the end of the class right now. If anyone has any last questions.
Is a fundraising question, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh yeah. I mean, fundraising, right? I mean, what can I say? Fundraising. There are ways to fundraise. I think the main thing about fundraising is you have to be convincing, right? You are basically selling yourself on the company. That's what it is. So you have to instill a very high level of confidence in someone who will then give you money, whether it's for a seed round, whether it's a private individual will give you $10,000, $20,000, all the way to someone will give you $50 million, like it happened to us last year when we raised a $100 million round. Like one of the investors gave us $55 million, right? So it's a lot about that, and how you do that. It's a mix between your own personal credibility, the way you present yourself, the way you present your idea, the way you pitch, obviously, it's practice. You have to be a little lyrical. you do have some rules, right? One of the best articles about how to prepare your pitch is by Bing Gordon, who was the co-founder of Electronic Arts. I think he wrote it in 2005. It's on the Kleiner Perkins website. If you look, Bing Gordon, tip for fundraising, etc. Like he has a 5-slide format that is best. And then it's like anything else, entrepreneurship. You get advice, you practice, you iterate, and you make your pitch your own. And it will never be perfect. But at the end of the day, fundraising is not just a deck. It's a process. It's a race. There are some rules. There are some best practices. Probably it would be another hour to talk about it. But at the end of the day, you have to be convincing. My co-founder and I think we're pretty good at it now in some ways, right? Because we've raised quite a bit of money over 2 companies. I laugh because I'm like still in disbelief that, it's kind of like in entrepreneurship, like in lots of things, it's like once you decide to fundraise, it's the next hill, and that's all that matters. Fundraising is part of your business. It is your duty. If you choose that model, okay, I'm representing. There were questions about fundraising. I'm representing the Silicon Valley model where you get money from other people to do stuff, right? Money is energy. Money basically is energy. It gives you 2 things. It gives you people on time, because with money you can hire people, and therefore you have time. With people on time, you build something to either raise more money and or test it and or launch, right? That's basically what it is. So money is energy you get in return for shares in your company. You have to be convincing. The thing investors won't invest in you because you're French or you sound cool or whatever. There are many reasons why they don't invest. Actually, most investors, good investors, will try to find, just like when I interview someone, my main criteria is to try to say no. I'm trying to find all the possible reasons to say no. That person wasn't prepared, that person wasn't eloquent, that person didn't sound serious, that person didn't sound motivated. That's great. After 5 minutes, I know, hey, bye, right? Same thing with investors. And they will invest in you for one main reason. If they're good investors, they want to make money. Okay, this is very clear. Some people will try to tell you otherwise, and they are trying to invest in this profile, that profile. Yeah, for sure, some investors have different investment theories, different specialization, but at the end of the day, they have to make money. They are all at different stages. Some are early stage, some are late stage. That's another topic. You have to understand your audience. There are many reasons why they want to talk to you. Sometimes they are not talking to you because they want to invest. Sometimes they want to learn more. They are doing what's called a coverage call. They are like trying to learn more about your space, your idea, to invest in someone else, or because they already have investments. Nothing you can do about it. Fundraising is a race, because once you start fundraising, it's literally like trying to go to the finish line. This is the next hill, the hill you need to climb, and you need to do everything you can to close as quickly as possible. And it's part of the business. Some people say, well, it's really distraction to fundraise. Excuse me? Like literally last year, I had a call with an entrepreneur who wanted to have us, my wife and I, as early investors. And he was like, yeah, I really want to focus on my real business, fundraising. He kind of said that fundraising is kind of a distraction. It's a waste of my time. I was like, okay. Sorry, am I not investing? If fundraising is like it's like anything else. You're testing, right? You're testing your hypothesis. You're testing the reactions, and you're gonna get lots of no's. You're gonna get some yes. It's also one thing. It's really like sales, because once you have a little bit of traction, you turn it into more traction, and you have typically a snowball effect, right? So you have to think about it top down, bottom up. Top down, am I part of something big, right? Do you really, everything is possible, but I'm working on this organic tea. Right there, nobody's going to invest except a few people, right? Now you say, hey, I'm working on the metaverse. It's this big thing, you've heard about it. Oh, okay, big category. Almost all my pitches are metaverse, but okay, big. And here is my piece, right? And here is why I'm going to be successful. And then bottom up is, are these folks convincing? Are they passionate? Do they present well? My co-founder and I, we have a dynamic duo over the years. We don't finish each other. Sometimes it's because we don't cut off each other, but we've developed like phrases, whole blocks of presentation that we have iterated on sometimes for 10 years. The way we introduce ourselves, the way we answer questions. Sometimes he says it, sometimes I say it, and of course we evolve it, right? So any opportunity you have to work on your public speaking, your public presentation is important. And then you read, you talk, and then as everything in entrepreneurship, you'll hear gray, black, purple, blue, white advice, and then at the end of the day, you decide, and you make it your own, and it's your right decision. For instance, people say you have to have a perfect deck. Some people say you don't need a deck. The deck is very important because a deck is a forcing function that forces you to crystallize your ideas, present them, right? Some people say no deck. Well, I will tell you, we've raised with almost no deck. Did we have a deck? Yes, we do. Was it a good deck? Yeah, I would say so. In most cases, it was okay to good. It was maybe, but we almost never used the deck except post-presentation. It was always talking and demoing. And that's the other thing, and sorry, I'm putting most of the ties, but if you're fundraising, one of my main criteria pretty much with anybody, even my employees, applicants, anybody, even my kids, is a delta between the time you talk to someone and the time you talk next, between A and B, right? The delta of accumulating more commitment for your round, the delta of work, the prototype, right? Sometimes you can raise the prototype is a deck. Like we've literally used the deck to prototype stuff and show it to people, right? Anyways, we could talk about fundraising for hours. The good news is that you're in the right area to fundraise. There's lots of money still, and lots of advice. So yes, and I know we've run out of time, so sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Frederic. Yeah, can we get a round of applause?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. We're going to be moving on to the slideshow.
Yeah, go. And add me on LinkedIn. And sometimes I'm too quick to saying no to invitations. So if I turn your invitation down, I'm really sorry. Put a little note like, hey, I was at Berkeley at the talk, etc. Okay, but have a great weekend and congrats on being at Berkeley. It's an amazing school. You're in a very privileged, awesome environment, and just make the best use of it. Make great friends. You would keep them for life. You don't even realize that yet. And yeah, have fun and maybe see you soon. Bye-bye. Cheers. Have a good weekend. Thank you.